friends with Dorothy, fighting for your civil rights. Out on the cruel streets tonight. For Sylvia and Marcia, life was harder than you'll ever know. Still they placed a star where others just threw a stone. Ignited, 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 yeah.
Today we go all the way over to beautiful Hungary, and particularly around the Budapest area, because our guest is a great man called Gabor. So Gabor, welcome to Ireland and welcome to LGBTQ+life.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Gabor, before we talk about some of the issues at hand, can you just share with listeners, what is your, you speak excellent English because we've connected in the past, but what is your connection to Hungary? I know you're living there at the moment, but I suspect you possibly lived outside Hungary as well. So if you could just share with
listeners
what your Hungarian, your Magyar background is.
Yeah, I was born in Hungary, actually, to a Hungarian father, so that's my connection to Hungary. So this is I'm bilingual, so my native is Hungarian as well. So
Indeed.
I was born and raised here, educated here, and all that in a village like 100 kilometers from Budapest. And yeah, I'm 29 years old, so I was not born like in a communism and
Sure.
in the like before, I was born after that happened. And
Sure, yeah. You were born, as we say, post Berlin Wall.
Yes,
yeah.
1992.
Yeah, so that would put you, the early 90s in that sense of the word. So you would be very much a product of the modern Hungary. Is there quite a difference in generational thinking in that regard?
Well, I think there is. The people who were raised, like in like before that, like pre the post era, like they are like more conservative, obviously, and more like okay, these are the rules, and we need to follow those rules. If we don't follow the rules, we get kicked in the ass, maybe, who knows.
Sure.
So, but after that, we got loosened up. But in the school, in the education system, we still had those teachers, those rough, like Russian-style teachers.
Sure.
We had to sit straight and we couldn't really eat, drink, or even we couldn't do anything except just watching and listening. So it's half this and half that.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to hear you say this, Gabor, because I'm a bit older than yourself, but my recollection as a child, the first time I ever came across refugees coming to Ireland was about 1956-57, which was a very pivotal year in Hungarian history. And my recollection of that period is that Hungary didn't welcome the invasion of the Russian forces. Hungary was very resistant to the invasion, and it was quite what was, if you like, an attempt at some form of liberalization in Hungary in 1956. It was severely quashed. So it's very, listening to you hear you say this of what we call Russian-style teachers. Did they clean out anybody? What would your father's generation say to you about that period?
Well, he's really against that, because they took everything away from them. We had like my granddad had farms and all that. He was a kulak, or I don't know how to call it in English, kulak maybe.
Yes. There's the prison camps.
Yeah. So we were not really happy about that era. but we survived it. And then when they changed, we were really happy about it. But I think people just got used to it, and they adapted to that situation. And people who were raised under this regime, they got used to a certain conservative mindset and a certain conservative way of living. So maybe that's why the leaders of today are kind of doing the same thing in like a slightly more underhanded way, and they're still like people still like to be, led, and they're not like if they're left to be like free and you can do whatever you want, they need a leader. I mean, we all like that. We're human beings. We all like that. We need leaders. But here and in those post-communist countries, people really need someone who tells them what to do, and most people are like that. And that's why this leadership, the current leadership, succeeds.
It's interesting you should say that, because although we started this conversation about 1956, in reality, immediately before that, Hungary had been invaded by the Nazis. So it was like, my word, we've really drawn the short straw here, not once but twice. Have both of those events, have they played into what I would call Hungarian nationalism? Because Hungarian culture is quite different. The language is different, the culture is different from quite a lot of the neighbors around it. It doesn't, if I'm correct, the Magyar language, it's nothing like Polish, it's nothing like Czech, it's very, very different in that regard. So has that played into a form of nationalism, the fact that you've had two powerful neighbors really come in and abuse you?
Yeah, I think that our language is like really unique, and we couldn't even find any connections to any other languages. They tried with the Finnish and Estonian, but they couldn't really prove it. It's always been put to me that Finnish is like Magyar, but you're saying it's probably not. Even they say that. Some Finnish people say that. It's like, okay, it's just a theory. It's not entirely okay.
So where did the Magyars come from? Just for my own education.
What
they tell you in school,
what I was taught was that we came from up north, from the Ural mountains, around Russia. Came down here, and then those tribes separated, and probably the Finnish went up and the Estonians went up, and we stayed here. That's the theory. Like we came from Russia, the Ural mountains. But we never know.
It's interesting. So along the way, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and after the collapse of the Soviet Empire, or at least the USSR, as we like to refer to it, Hungary very soon afterwards was one of about 5 or 6 Eastern European countries that went into the EU. Now, how much has changed that? Because I was just slightly younger than you when Ireland went into the EU. I was against it, I must admit, at the time. Now I realize I was wrong. The best thing that has ever happened to this country is the fact that we went into the EU. We went from a dirt poor country to one of the wealthiest countries in Europe. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. What the impression I got was that certain countries like Hungary, like Poland, like the Baltic states, they were more, if you like, pushed into the EU than specifically embraced the EU. how has that gone down in Hungary? Is it something that people welcomed, or was it something that, well, do we have much choice because otherwise the Russians might come back?
Well, I don't. I was maybe 12 years old or something, so I can't really. I couldn't really grasp what that really was at that time, because I was just having fun with the guys, and we were just riding our bicycles and
Sure.
having a good time. But I know that maybe a little more than half of the population was for joining the EU, and maybe 40-45% was against it. So it was not really a lot of people who wanted to join, but it's just that majority that won.
Sure, yeah.
The elections, and then we won.
Yeah, it tends. What people didn't tend to not quite understand is that when you join a bloc like the European Union, one gives up some, if you like, national sovereignty. And I think perhaps that's what's happening now in Poland, and perhaps even more so in Hungary. Do you think that particularly politicians, they can basically have their nationalist cake and eat it, and don't quite grasp what we understand as European values?
Well, I think they try to, do their best, but well, as for me, I really love it, because I want a world without like borders, and like John Lennon did when he brought the Imagine. But I think sometimes it's I've seen a big billboard saying that, have we had enough of the EU? And I just looked at it. I was like, what? Like, how can they actually like put up a big billboard saying that, have we already had enough of the EU? Like, we are part of the EU. It's like talking behind your best friend's back or something. Like, you're in a group, like you're in a classroom, like you have a group at your workplace, and then you say to your boss, like, have you had enough of your colleagues? Have you had enough of this person and that person? I'm like, what is going on? Like, why is this? I don't really know why is this, but I don't really know why they put up that billboard, but it's like really annoying. Like, why would you say that?
Do you have any idea who's financing that? Is this government, or is this other groups?
I'm sure that it's the government, because at the bottom of the billboard it says that it's financed by the Hungarian government. I mean, it is set up by them. Yeah.
One of the issues that particularly the current government in not just Hungary, but other Eastern European countries as well, have latched onto is the issue of migration. And I've noticed that has even become more to the fore in the last couple of weeks after the fall of Afghanistan. I think I saw somebody on Euronews from Hungary saying, nope, we can't have any Afghans. They should be kept in Afghanistan. How significant is the issue of migration, or is it what we say in this part of the world, the squeaky wheel gets the most oil? In other words, whoever makes the most noise about something gets to be heard. And are Hungarian people, I'm not going to say racist, but are they opposed to migrants or just wary of migrants?
Well, I think it is, they're wary of migrants. Obviously, every culture, every community has people who unfortunately are racist, and we try to do something about it. But yeah, they worry. And maybe, as you say, as the squeaky wheel gets the most oil. It could be the strategy. Who knows? And obviously the government is not that liberal, so they're conservative. So they put everything in boxes, and the boxes are in order, and they don't want to move around those boxes. That's what conservatism is about. So they just that's what, and people, who don't have their own opinions, and they listen to the news and all that stuff. They just hear what's going on in the news, like, our migrants are dangerous, and they believe them, obviously, because that's the news. And that's what they keep saying to their friends, and the word spreads, and more people say that migrants could be dangerous, and we should let them in. Well, it's like it could be really both ways, because liberals can be right and can be wrong as well about it, and conservatives can be right and can be wrong about it. So really, we still don't know, because they can bring a lot of wealth and a lot of good things, but on the other hand, they can maybe, who knows? It's like there was this Spanish flu in America, when they came in and they brought something in. Who knows who's right and who's wrong? But to answer your question, most of the population is really wary and afraid of letting them in. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, in many respects, I mean, this comes back to what we would call the challenge of otherness. In other words, the idea that all people who grew up in the same culture and born in the same area, that we all get on with each other. Well, Ireland can tell you we certainly don't, and we're only a small island in a small population. Is that mindset, is that feeding into certain things? Because what we're going to talk about is what has had Hungary in the news, in that sense of the word, which is the LGBT issue. Is that not so much the migrant issue in itself, but this mindset of if you're not me and you're not like my neighbor and my wife and my family and all of that, then I have a reason to be wary. I won't put it any stronger than that.
I think, in my opinion, with the migrants, if someone doesn't look it up, and someone doesn't really run their research, they just believe what they say, they don't really know what's going on, and they will not know that those people, who those people are. But we really know, with the LGBTQ, we really know what this is. It's been there for I don't know, since the human beings started existing, it's been there forever. And I think it's a different issue, because it's in the community, and it's not like something foreign that we should be wary of, because obviously human beings are always afraid of new things, and it's kind of understandable. As long as we don't know who those migrants are, there will be people who will be afraid, as long as they don't know, if they really if they are really okay. But with the LGBTQ, I think it's more different, because we all know what that means, what being gay and queer, what that means. And, it's
Before we discuss that, Gabor, I just want to, we talked about Hungary's accession to the EU. Now, it probably wasn't explained in when people were voting in favor of that. But two issues that are really important and are very controversial, particularly in Poland, and to the same degree almost in Hungary, and that is the issue. One of the core EU values is a free press. In other words, the government does not control the media, and the other one, of course, is an independent judiciary. How free and how diverse is the media in Hungary? In this country, although we're only a small country, the station that you'll be going out on is a community station. It's funded to a certain degree by the government, but they don't come in to me and say, oh, you're not allowed to talk to Gabor, you're not allowed to discuss these topics. We're allowed to discuss anything we want. Is that the situation in Hungary, or is it a bit more controlled?
I believe it's a bit more controlled, although I have not experienced it because I'm not in touch with these journalists, and I've never asked them to publish things. But I think what's going on the TV, for example, on television, for example, is kind of controlled, because I just think because when it's about migrants, for example, they only mention those things that could be bad, but they never mention those things that could be good. That could be the values that they bring in.
Sure.
That could be good for the country, but it's always mentioned what could be bad and what we could be afraid of. So they never mention the two sides to give people an opportunity.
It's not, in other words,
decide what they want.
It's, in other words, it's not balanced.
It's not balanced. No, there's no freedom to decide if you want that or that. You just have that, and don't even think about the other one.
Yeah. If I could put it to you, if you were a migrant in Hungary, how are you presented, say on television? Because give you an example, when I came back to Ireland from Australia, if you were a black person, and there were a few here at the time, there's quite a few more, many of whom were born in Ireland, but generally speaking, you were portrayed as a gangster, a robber, a rapist, or a migrant. You were never portrayed as a doctor or a lawyer or just an ordinary man. So how is that otherness? How, for instance, would a migrant or a gay person be portrayed on Hungarian television?
Well, I think he would have to work his way a lot more harder up to be portrayed as a doctor or like, I don't know,
or a lawyer.
Or a lawyer. He would have to work a lot harder because he's a migrant to be accepted like that. So it's like tenfold harder, maybe. But if for example, if a gay person had like, just let's say, an online web shop, and he would want to be presented on a television as a gay hunter, for example, and he would have an online hunter, a web shop for like hunting equipment or something like that. I think he would lose like 30 to 40% of his customers, where at the point when it turns out that actually this guy who has his web shop is gay. Like those people who, for example, hunt, they are the more conservative ones, most of them.
Sure.
Because in the countryside, it's like more prevalent. And I think he would lose a lot of customers just by admitting that he's a gay hunter.
Yeah. What about television? Because generally speaking, in the world of entertainment, you get television presenters, you get singers, you get dancers. People know, oh yes, it may not be talked about widely, but people know that these people are LGBT. Do they have to hide it in Hungary? Because we noticed there was a member of parliament, of the Hungarian member of parliament. I think he went to a party in Brussels, and then he had to resign because people discovered, oh yes, well, we didn't know he was gay. But so in this part of the world, people would say, so what? But I suspect it's not quite like that in Hungary at the moment.
If you're an entertainer, like artist, musician, it is more accepted. It is more accepted. But if you're a politician and if you want to be in politics,
sure,
it is. I don't think it is okay to be like LGBTQ. Because it's like, no, in politics it's not. If you're an artist, it's like more okay. It's
this is what they do, sort of thing.
That's okay. And they're on television and they admit it, like fashion designers, singers, actors. They admit it and they take it.
Well, all I can say is it wasn't that different here about 8 years ago, and then we started to, we had a referendum, and suddenly all these people, who most of us knew were gay anyway, suddenly came out of the woodwork. And now we've had an LGBT prime minister. Not that he's widely liked by the LGBT community because he's very conservative, but these things will change. But let's go to the current legislation, which has attracted a lot of controversy. Now, my understanding is that the government will probably say, oh, no, we're not against gay people. We're trying to protect children. Now, we've heard this. The British did this in the 80s. Excuse me. We heard it in the last 10 years. Usually it's lies. It's usually anti-LGBT. How is it being perceived in Hungary? Is that story being accepted by the general population?
Well, I think by the general population is accepted because that's why they came up with this law. Like they know by having conducted surveys probably that most of the population is against LGBT and is not really they don't really accept that, like maybe more than 50%, and that's why they probably went for this law because they want to win the next elections, and this is just the way to ensure that they have the majority on their side.
Yeah.
But the minority is really like mad about it, and minority is not that small.
Well, I've seen the protests in Hungary, and there's quite an active opposition, if that's the case. But what does it actually involve that you're not allowed? For instance, do television stations have to, if you like, self-censor about how they portray LGBT? Do libraries have to take books out? I gather that there's some restrictions on the way it can be presented in schools. What's exactly involved then, Gabor?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's involved. What you just said. Yeah, exactly. Like books cannot be presented in schools if they really contain something about
a description. Yeah. So how do you then present somebody like Oscar Wilde or David Bowie or you're supposed to say, well, David Bowie was this and Oscar Wilde was that, and that they weren't what we know that they actually were?
I don't think they mentioned that he was what he was. I mean, I don't think they mentioned his sexual orientation. They just mentioned David Bowie, and that's it. It's up to you to find it out.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the internet is not controlled. Like social media is not controlled by them. So anyone can really. Books are, television is, education is controlled kind of by this law. But the internet and social media and all that is still. Okay,
let's just talk about one book, for instance, or one writer, which is one of the, we'll call him a man who produced LGBT classics, which was Jean Genet. I don't know if he's been translated into Magyar, possibly is, possibly not. But we say you wanted to order a copy of one of Genet's books from Hungary, or from New York to Hungary on Amazon. Would that be restricted, or what would the situation be?
Oh, no, you could order that. You could order that book. It's just that you cannot teach from that in a school, for example.
Okay, yeah.
You cannot take it and read from that if it contains material like
Something else I've noticed as well is that the term we use in Ireland is cute-whore, and that is somebody who is doing something because they think they'll probably get away with it, even though morally we know they shouldn't. Viktor Orban clearly was worried that his legislation, or proposed legislation, was going to come up with some serious problems in Brussels. So he's called a referendum on that. Are referenda common in Hungary, or is this what we would call Victor being a bit of a cute whore?
I think it's a curator, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a history of referenda, or do you know when was the last one? For instance, I can't recall when there was a referendum in Hungary, other than going into the EU.
I cannot recall really, because I'm not really following that.
Sure.
That much, but I can you?
No. Well, that's what but I presume he's called a referendum because he thinks he's going to win it. Yeah. So at this stage, the EU have talked about kicking Hungary out. Now, I don't think it's going to happen over this one. It may happen over a free press. It may happen over an independent judiciary. But something that I was looking at Euronews this morning, and what it was saying is that what you're getting, particularly in places like Hungary and Poland, is you're getting a government that's saying, we're great, it's the EU that's all of the problems. Is that being well received by their supporters? In other words, it's playing the nationalist card.
They play nationalist card, that's true. I don't think it's going to go that far.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not going to succeed with that.
Yeah. Let's move on there, Gabor, because you and we first got to talk because you've been producing an animation video to highlight what the issues are. What stage is that at the moment, if you could share with our listeners, and what's the intention of it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm an artist. I act in a theatre, sometimes in movies, and I'm a musician as well. So I came up with the idea that I would try to produce, if I get the funding, if I get the finances, a music video to support the acceptance for LGBTQ people in those countries where it is still not that accepted, like in Hungary, Poland. And this music video will be not just an animation, it will be about real people, it will be real life music video, but I made an animation as a representation of that music video, which you can really watch, and if you feel like this story is kick-ass and support, I would really appreciate it, because the story really is emotional and it aims to get some compassion from people.
It's a powerful story you're telling.
It is a powerful, emotional story. It's almost like I don't know if you've ever seen the Take Me to Churches. Hosea is an Irish singer, as far as I know.
He certainly is, yes.
He's an Irish singer, and he has his music video about two gay people who take me to church. Video clip. So it's going to be kind of like that if I really get the finances for that, and I can hire like a professional team of camera people, and I can get the equipment and all that. Assistant directors, and everything is actually mentioned in an expense sheet on the Get Funding page, which I have for that. So
tell us about that, Gabor. How can people contribute, or how can people materially support making this video?
Well, they like what they see in the animation. There's a Go Get Funding page. We already have two supporters.
How do they access the GoFund page? What's it called?
Go Get Funding page. Well, I always link it to people.
Okay.
But if they search for LGBT, I Can't Have Fallen in Love with You, ukulele cover, because that will be the song that's going to play underneath the music video. I'm going to play with the ukulele. They will find it, and it's in memory of Evanshi Patel. He's an Indian guy who died because of homophobia. So if they type that in, probably it's going to come up. But I can maybe we can leave a link in the description.
I can put a link with this video, and I can put a link with our Facebook page. Gabor,
search engines and how they work.
Yeah, and maybe we might even see if we can get you in touch with Hosier himself, and who knows, he might come on board, because let's be honest, he did quite well out of Take Me to Church.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Gabor, it's been a delight to talk to you. It's been incredibly informative. You're a courageous man. You're a very, as I say, you're a very moral man, and it's great to see that what we would call the Hungarian spirit is still alive there, and it's connecting at the very far end of Europe as well, because we're at the quite the western end of it. So, Gabor, it's been a delight to speak with you today.
Thank you very much. It's been a delight for me too. Thank you very much.
Take care.
You too. Take care.
Friends of Dorothy come out off the sidewalk and onto the street, to the sound of those legendary feet. When there's no place like home, establishment, with the chaff and the short straw, they'll have a stuff for sure. Anti-M, I'm anti-establishment. They took my name and the clothes I own. They broke our hearts, but not our souls. When there's no place like home, when there's no place like home, when there's no place like home.